You just tuned in to Up for Discussion.
Good day. Good
we are.
evening. Here we go.
All right.
So it is December 12th. And we're going to check real quick, since me and Josh are by ourselves, that we have audio.
Audio check.
Yeah.
1 2 1 2.
After mine switches over here, we'll see if we got voices, because sometimes we had music and we didn't have voices. There we are. All right. So we are here. You should be able to hear us. Fire up the comments. Let us know you're there. Thumbs up. Hello, everybody, and all that stuff. We have titled this evening's podcast. What did I tell him?
Yeah. Well, what do we do now?
What?
Yeah. What
What
now?
now? What do we do now? Late season stuff. So we'll just give you some things that we do that may not be right for you, may be totally different than what you do. And if you have anything you can put in the comments to help a guy potentially pick his place for the last few weeks here, because I said December 12th. We have what?
We got about a month.
About a month of archery hunting left. So if you haven't punched your buck tag or doe tag or tags in general,
You better hurry.
and hunting changes again.
Yeah.
It changes from here on out. So as we get on, like I said, once we get going, just remember, come check us out at Ultra Products. Like this page, up for discussion, podcast where we discuss all kinds of things, throw it up in the air, bounce it around, mostly around the hunting and archery world, but yes, other things as well. So all those things, comment, like, share, and we're going to get started so I can go home this evening and eat some supper.
Yeah. Knowing me, I've already been snacking all the way here.
I did have a McChicken a while ago. I had a couple McChickens actually a while ago that George Owen went and got for me because I hadn't ate all day. But so what in the world do we do now?
Well,
because obviously the rut that everybody has waited patiently on is coming and going. And yes, there will be some more rut activity. But I got news for you. It's not going to be like November 5th.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely
10th.
sporadic.
Yeah.
It'll be here and there. And if you're in the woods and you get to see it, lucky you.
Oh, when you see rutting activity after, I'd say, December 15th, count your blessings, name them one by one, because it's going away. That's how it works every year. So it's going away. And we wanted the title this evening, What Now?
That's
and
what
all I can,
like. Yeah, literally,
yeah.
I just crawled out of the stand. I just got here, man.
Just rolled in out of the tree.
Come in, my tires are hot.
Yeah. How was your evening?
Oh, it was.
It probably left you when you left this evening thinking, well, what now?
What now? Yeah, it was a big fat goose egg.
Yeah, I've had a couple goose eggs. I think it's not necessarily because deer just quit moving. I think some of it would be because maybe we're still clinging to the rut life.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah, and you hunt spots. Not that you can't kill a deer in a what we would call more of a rut location, rut stand, because that could happen too. And there's places where it's both. I've got a couple places where I can hunt early season. I hunt the rut there, and late season because of
just a good draw or a good funnel.
The things are right there. The food's always generally there, so things like that, so you can take it all the way through. But there are places that I hunt that I just have to back out of for the most part. We all know there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, I leave those places about now.
Yeah,
I start having to reprogram my mind to be like, as much as I want to see a big 4, 5, 6-year-old buck chasing a doe, there's a good chance it's not going to happen.
That's what I did tonight, man. I was in a little funnel I got that was smoking hot about a month ago, and had a really good buck on camera yesterday, but it's been pretty dead up until then. And I committed to it.
Yeah.
And sat there and just watch the wind blow.
So you probably I haven't thought about it a whole lot but I know what I do, generally speaking. So be thinking, I'll try to kick us off here, be thinking along the lines of what now.
Well, I
and that
know.
means how you're going to change anything you're going to do different, and I'll try to kick us off.
Well,
and then you can follow up.
I was just gonna say, like, I've been watching this one spot and should have went there. It was one of them deals like, oh, I need to go there. That's where I need to go. The deer have moved now, they've changed. And I'm like, no. Oh, Bighorns is back there in the back, and he's not.
He's not there. Huh?
He's not. He's up on the edge with the
Yeah,
rest of them.
yeah.
That's where he's at. And
Yeah.
so yeah, go ahead anyway. Because I mean, I have for the last week wanted to go hunt one specific spot, and I have some digital information being relayed to me in real time in there, and there are deer in there every single day. And why I didn't go in there?
There's
the age
you
old
still
thing.
know of that one.
Yeah.
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 Last time you seen him, he was there. And,
Yeah.
and your mind, that's where we're going to have to reprogram the rest of this season, because you have to switch to your late season stuff. And we do set right on the edge. Obviously at December 12th, you're setting right on the edge, where we're at anyway, of
At the end of the rut here.
it's wrapping up, and yeah, there's probably some bucks out there making some scrapes, checking some of those rope scrapes and old community scrapes, and still rubbing a tree every once in a while. You're going to see yearlings and 2-year-olds still bouncing their heads off of each other in the edge of a cornfield,
Yeah, that's happening.
sparring and pushing on each other. But as far as just the hardcore, tongue hanging out of the head, eyes bugged out, bucks could care less about anything. That's subsiding.
But the cornfield.
Yeah.
That's
So
they're hungry.
I'll kick off. I mean,
All right.
obviously, there's two things here, I think, to maybe think about. If you still have a buck tag and you're looking for a good buck, one thing is perseverance, because now it's easy not to go unless it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So I tell you a story about my morning this morning. So I had good intentions I knew it was going to be cold. I was like, man, I'm going to slip out there. You always have good intentions the night before. I was like, I'm going to slip out there and go hunting. And I had already thought I'm probably going to set some places where I'm close to food, like good food sources. So I had made mental notes about 3 or 4 times this year when I crossed cornfields, of places or particular cornfields that missed a lot of corn.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I always make a mental note of that. I just do. And there's
Must be
a
a
couple
John Deere.
fields. There's a couple. Boy, you just offended a bunch of people.
No,
out
they
there
know.
now.
They know.
They know. But there's a couple fields. Sometimes you walk across a cut cornfield, and you always find.
Yeah, where they
Corn-
turn around
you
and
find
stuff.
corn cobs that
They
were
smash it
missed and
up,
stuff like
smash
that.
it down.
But then sometimes there's some fields that just seems like there's a lot more corn. And I
Uh-huh.
know that this year there was a lot of corn down.
Yeah.
So guys were nipping it off at the ground and getting, what do they call it?
The reel.
A reel, putting reels on, trying to get it up. So there are places,
There's
pay
just-
attention. There's fields. I know of 2 where I was like, when I walked across them, I was like, there is corn everywhere in this field. The combine that it couldn't get. It was either on the ground or it was a John Deere that missed it.
Yeah. Well, and there's a lot, when I say that, there's a lot of
Yeah.
variables, like how the moisture of the corn, how fast they're going,
Right,
what it's
right.
set at. But there's also areas in the field where, because the head, a corn head, the platform is rigid.
Sure.
It's not like a bean head, like these draper heads that'll have some flex in them.
Right.
So like up around your hillsides, a lot of like
They could push some down and not get
a lot
it.
around a lot of tile levees and stuff like that. You'll
Sure.
see a lot of berms.
Yeah.
I tend to find a lot of corn around there. And then also, just if you look out in the field, you're like, man, I always see those deer out in that corner.
in that area. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess if you haven't, if you're listening, you didn't make mental notes of those places, or you just didn't see any of those places, and you have a cornfield, a cut cornfield nearby one of your good, I'm going to say within 300 yards or closer to where you know good deer and deer in general are going to bed.
Yeah.
I would go in the middle of the day maybe and check some of those cornfields, walk them.
Yeah. Walk the
I would,
edges.
yeah, I'd walk the edges. I'd walk 100 yards out from the edge where you know they come out. I would check and just find, I'm not telling you to go put corn out. Don't nobody misunderstand that, because that's illegal.
Not in the state of Illinois.
But I must take advantage of where the combine and the farmer or the corn fell down or something like that. So I've made some mental notes this deer season as I walked across cornfields of particular fields that seemed like there's a lot of corn on the ground here. Well, that tells me eventually there's a real good chance late season there's going to be a lot of deer here. Now, one of those fields, tons of corn got dropped in that field. Whole cobs, busted cobs, scattered corn. But it doesn't have very good heavy bedding. Because when the temperatures drop, a deer ain't stupid. He knows when he lays down in a thick, nasty honeysuckle patch, he's probably warmer.
Yeah, he's warmer. Thermal cover.
He's not fighting wind, hitting him as much, and they can push up in that stuff. And they've been pressured. They've been shot at. They've been shot. They've been grazed. They've been chased. They've been jumped. So naturally, they just naturally push into
farther and farther
to
away.
uglier, brushy places. It may not be far from the food, but it needs to be ugly that they can hide in.
I noticed,
and that's a broad thing, so it's not that way with every deer, but for the most part,
I noticed yesterday
some pretty good places.
Talking about bedding, there's been a pretty good group of does I've been watching on a camera set I have, and I've not even hunted it. Not hunted it one time this year, but that's about to change.
It's about to change.
But I did notice that these does are starting to bed down right on the edge of this little meadow now.
Yeah.
They're getting down in this little holler. They're laying right next to the food now. And so,
that's why I said, I think when you really, because we're just inching into the late season style of hunting. I think when you get full blown late season hunting, in another week and a half or two, you're talking many times from my experiences, and I'm talking about hunting mature deer, 4-year-old plus bucks that most of the time, gosh, it seems like they are within a big stone's throw.
Yeah, they're right there most of the time.
Of the food. So I go back to what I was saying. If you know where there's a lot of corn on the ground that the farmer missed, and there's really good bedding near to that.
Yeah. Or some good cover. Yeah. Just or good cover. Yeah.
So the first place that I checked, and well, let me make sure you know what I'm talking about. So this morning I got up, I was like, man, my body was really talking about not going.
About laying down.
If you've ever had that conflict where you lay there. So I got up and made coffee, and it was, plenty of time I could have headed to a stand or, somewhere, but I was like, my body was like, man, it sure is nice in here. And I know it's cold out there. That's where I said, what do we do now? Well, if you're going to keep hunting, you're going to have to find a way to push through that and persevere and go. And two, pay attention. If you haven't already found corn, where it's laying on the ground, lots of it. Any cornfield, really, obviously, for sure.
Yeah.
But there's some that are just better.
Well,
and they find that. And then three, I was going to say, like what I did this morning was maybe take a hunt or two
to just observe, man,
and cruise, because cameras are great. Your cameras are wonderful
until they walk around them.
But
or they're not in front of them.
I can see a lot more sometimes with my binoculars from a vantage point from the road. So what I did this morning was got up because my flesh was like, Lathan, just drink another cup of coffee and don't go. And I was like, no, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait till about 15 minutes before daylight, and I'm going to start driving towards a couple of those places.
Yeah, get a little light out.
And I'm going to drive around them and not just drive by them once. I was like, I'm going to drive past those places about 4 times.
Circling like a vulture.
Yeah, like a vulture. That's exactly right. So I drove past this field, literally past this field, glassed it, did not see nothing in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm talking like 700 acres of corn.
Sure.
And I walked across it several times this year, but I walked across it, and there's some particular areas out there that I know. I was like, golly gee, it's like where they, like you said, they turned around the combine or something, they knocked some corn, or it was already down and they just didn't get it. You know, so they're got to make time they're running on. They're not going to jump out and pick up 40 cobs of corn.
Depends who it is.
Depends on who it is. But anyhow, so I drove past that field. So what I'm saying is take an evening and a morning. A lot of people drive of an evening, but I drove this morning. Do both.
Yeah.
Find out, when they're there, because they could be there in the morning too. Yeah. So anyhow, I took the morning and drove past that field, went to another one, went to the field where there's tons of corn. I mean, I was blown away when they got the corn out, how much corn got missed in that field.
Yeah.
But I knew there's not a lot of bedding there. So I drove to it, actually got out and had to walk about 150 yards to see over the ditch, because it's a hidden cornfield.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing, just nothing there. No deer. Glassed all the ditches, didn't see no deer. I was like, because it's just not a lot of cover there.
Yeah.
Now in the rut, those ditches are just,
that's where they're
sometimes they're off the hook. Yeah. Just off the hook, deer lining up and down them. But this morning, not that I'm sure there's still some deer running around, but I didn't see them there. Went to another field. So I had 3 fields in mind, went to another field, checked it, seen a nice, probably a buck I would shoot in that field all by his lonesome self. And he
was he feeding?
Feeding, just picking corn out there. Turned and looked my direction. He didn't know I'd stopped behind a levee where he couldn't see, and I was looking over the top of the levee. Stopped, and he looked my direction. Only had half a rack. And at first, I thought he was already shed off, maybe like he'd taken a wound, and sometimes they'll shed early. But when I got looking close through my binocs, he was snapped off right after the brow tine.
So he got whipped on.
That or some 12 gauge blasted it off, or 300 blackout.
A little bigger round out there now, a little bigger caliber out there now.
Yeah. But anyhow, it was broke off, shot off, whatever. And I was like, man, what a shame. I don't want to shoot him as a half rack. I just don't want to. I'm not against that if you do that, but I just, gosh, it'd be a shame for him not to have both sides. So I was like, well, that's a dandy, but that's
only half the garnish.
Yeah. That didn't spur my fancy. So I was like, well, now I need to make the circle. So I come out of there and I went back down. By now it's about 7. I think it was in between 7 and 7:15. And I pulled down there and I was like, oh, no, there's some deer in that corn. Whether they were there before and I just didn't see them.
Or they just moved.
Or they just moved where I could see them or whatever, but I could see them. So I got pulled over. They're, 500 yards away, way across there. And I sat and watched them. There's a nice buck out there. And I told Wes this story today. I was sitting there like, man, what is he? Is he a shooter? He's a decent buck. It's obvious he's not a little bitty thing. But I was
you
like,
could see him from that far away.
And I was looking through my binocs and I was like, is he what I want? I'm not sure. I'm trying to gauge him. It's hard to gauge him from that far. I was like, I even see him decent. He's a decent buck. And I was trying to look at his body, and out from behind him, I don't know where he was standing. There was a clump of weeds out there that was kind of hiding some of them, and they could be in a low spot, or something.
And if they're not moving too, sometimes they're.
But out from behind him comes shooter daddy, and I was like,
Big John there.
Big John Henry come out of the low spot, out of the weeds, and I was like, that one. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And that got me excited. So I sat and watched him. They donked around. There were several does around. They donked around. They did not aggravate the does at all. Now they could have went in the woods and chased them all over creation. I don't know.
They do tend to stay close to them.
They were close to them.
They stay.
They were within 30 or 40 yards of about 5 or 6 does. And I could tell that the big one did not like
the other one being out there
the other one being there.
Yeah.
I could, from that far away, I could read his body language. He was like puffed up. Yeah, he was, every time the littler buck would move,
he would move
to the east, he would move to stay in between them. So I was like, well, there's still a little bit of juice. A little bit of
And
the,
that'll stay there. That will.
a little bit of the juices are still flowing. But so that's what I'm saying. What do we do now? That's kind of our title of this late season. One thing that I do is make a mental note of those fields that had lots of corn in them, or a mental note of, hey, there's a cornfield that's near a good bedding area. It may not be the hottest hunting spot during the rut,
Yes.
but the next few weeks, it's close to heavy cover. It's a good cornfield, whether I've seen corn in, or not in it. Obviously,
Sure, they're feeding.
There's corn out there
yeah,
somewhere.
They're feeding. So
There's corn out there somewhere. But I also make that mental note when there's a lot. I was like, ooh, this could pull them.
yeah, for
This
sure.
could really congregate them up.
I have a story real quick.
Yeah.
I had a little 20 I used to hunt, and the farmer, he must have had some trouble or something. And there's a little trap door underneath the head there, the old rock door.
Right.
Okay. So he must have picked something up or was doing an inspection or something, and he forgot to close that thing. And he went out there, and he had to have done it in the dark. And bless his heart, he's a good guy. And
Bless him, Lord.
but he shelled that entire 20, and he basically windrowed corn cobs. I mean, he got some of it, but I mean, he did obviously some of it, but everything that was coming down the center of that throat, he windrowed it. 20
The whole
acre,
cob,
the whole thing. Some of them were broken half, you know, when it was sucking them in there.
Corn.
But I walked out there and I was like, what is this? Yeah, I mean, I was like, this is insane.
Is this by mistake?
But by no stretch of the imagination, you can imagine what that was like really super, super late.
Yeah.
And it, like you said, it's kind of
January 1st.
Oh, well, it was
Happy
kind of
New
hidden,
Year's.
and you could barely from the road, but you had to get out there and it would drop off on the backside. And man, you would walk back there, and the guy that owns some adjacent property, he manages deer and he kills some really big ones.
Right.
And he was in on it too. And because I seen him,
He knew about it.
Oh yeah, because we had met.
Yeah.
He come walking up the edge of the fence row, and I was already tucked in there.
Did you do him like Nacho Libre?
I gave-
hey, save a piece of that corn for me, huh?
I gave him a whistle. He's like, and I was like, hey, he's like, yeah, there's a lot of corn out here.
See all this gold?
But yeah, it was amazing. But anyway, yeah, that was
Well, those are things that you must
Yeah.
make mental notes of.
oh, you would trip over it. I mean,
Yeah.
no, I mean you would literally trip over it. But
Yeah.
it was like I've never seen nothing like it to this
Right.
day. I was like, there's probably at least 2 truckloads of corn laying,
Yeah.
laying out here.
Well, you know, have you seen that? Is it meme where the guy's walking across the edge of the field with his bag of corn, and he trips and falls, and he's like, "Oh no!" You know, what
I can't pick it up
yeah,
now.
I can't pick it up. It went everywhere. You know, no, don't do that. We're not talking about that. We're
Have you
talking
seen Michael
about.
Waddell's? Have you seen that meme? He's like, you just got to be patient.
I
Have you ever
not.
seen
No,
that?
I haven't.
And out in the field, it's written with corn.
Patient.
Yeah.
Here's the deal. I am not at all against baiting.
Oh,
But
if you can bait,
obviously,
man.
obviously, in the state that you can do it,
Sure,
we
want
can't
you to
bait.
be legal.
But there is nothing wrong with making a mental note
Mm-hmm.
when a farmer has an accident, or they just have a year where they're running harder, faster, or what, for whatever reason.
The corn's
I
not
know where
coming off.
there's 2 fields. I was like, there's a lot of corn in
Yeah.
this field, and one of those was this morning.
Mm-hmm.
That big deer was in that field this morning. And of course, they're feeding. The does are feeding, heading back towards the woods. I'm sure where they're going to bed, there's some good cover and a couple ends of that little bitty 10-acre patch. So I'm like, he's susceptible to
Oh yeah.
me hunting him. Good chance it needs to be in the morning. Late season, sometimes mornings can be pretty foul. Not so much good, but
I'm a morning late season guy.
but they could be. They could be good. Yeah, you killed a nice buck last year in the morning, right? In
yeah,
like
and had all
January.
kinds of
all
kinds of good
late
stuff happening.
December. So it can happen. So my that's one of the what do I do now? I will drive around several times. If I go on, say I hunt 3 or 4 places or a spot 3 or 4 times, and I'm just not seeing what I want, well, the next evening or the next morning that I'm free, I may spend an hour in the vehicle.
That's what I should have done tonight. I could hear guys out tonight.
And I'm not road hunting, but I am observing from afar.
Yeah, you're scouting.
I think many times I can collect way better data than even a camera can.
Oh, for sure.
Just in my head, because that camera is limited to that
Field of view.
field of view there. Where if you would have had a camera, say there was a corner down, I don't know, 150 yards from where these deer were. And that's a place a lot of people would put their camera because a lot of deer are going to walk down to that corner and then go in.
Yeah, or cut the corner.
Or come out or whatever. But just this morning, if your camera's there, you didn't get a picture of those deer.
No.
Now, you might have got a picture of them the night before or something like that. But they may have been on this path for the last 3 or 4 days off and on, and you don't know he's there. But now I know he's there. My hopes are that he will be there somewhat indefinitely now.
Chances are that he'll at least probably hang around for a little bit here.
Yeah, because sometimes these mature deer can fall back into a pretty small circle from what I've seen, and not every deer is the same, but back into
They'll go back into a nocturnal phase.
Well, I see them up before dark a lot of an evening, especially if we can get some. I know nobody wants it, and there's parts of it that I don't want, but brutal cold weather for long stints of time as we can get.
Snow or something to cover up the corner.
I just base things on time, and in my last 20 years, I think about when late season was very mild.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see as many good deer late. When late season has been just, golly gee, it's like we're frozen stiff every time we go to the tree.
They're out early.
It's like I'm going to wait as long as I can because I know my feet and my hands and all those things are going to have a hard time hanging in there because I'm talking, down in the teens and colder. But that is when I have seen lots of mature deer out in the corn, the milo, different things like that, good food sources early enough that it's like,
well, and they'll change the way they're doing it too. Their metabolism will start to slow down. To conserve heat, and they adapt. And then what you'll start seeing happen is some of your peak warm hours of the day, when you have like in a real overhead sun, you'll start seeing later evenings, really early afternoons. You'll start seeing deer on their feet, up moving. They'll be out on the edges of those fields and whatnot, and that's what I like. A lot of times in the late season, I will hunt the woods. I'll try to get really close to bedding
in the morning.
And I'll go, I'll infiltrate real early in the morning, and I'll try to catch a corridor in between.
And some places will allow you to do that.
Yeah, and some places won't.
Some places it's like a nightmare to hunt of a morning. So I'm always like, I'd rather not spook him and just hunt him of an evening. Now, where this buck was this morning, I think if he'll move of a morning, I can get in it.
If he'll stay on the edges like that,
I think I can get in it and hunt it. Of an evening, it's the opposite. It's such a small little 10 to 14 acre patch of woods. It's like, man, if I go into of an evening, not saying I couldn't, and I'm not saying I won't.
You don't know where he's laying.
I'm not saying I won't try, but if he happens to pick a place in the open timber to bed, which they'll do sometimes.
Oh, absolutely.
When we say cover, they love the thick stuff, obviously, but they will get right out in the open timber.
They like to see what's going on around them.
And bed down, and you'll just walk right up on them and bust them. So I don't want to do that. Not yet. I'm not going to push it that hard just yet. Another week and a half, and I'll push him.
One tactic a guy can use is, if you're unaware of, say, where they're coming out or where they like to frequent or even where they're bedding, is what I do sometimes is I'll hunt on the ground and I'll come in. I'll be like, okay, I know there's deer. They've been coming out down in this corner, and I'll pull back and I'll play it safe. Like I may have the intention of maybe not this first hunt here. If I get him on this first one, hey, this is great.
Right.
But I'm going in, I'm collecting some intel.
Yeah.
And I'll go hunting on the ground, and I'll pull back kind of a safe distance. And then when they come out, I'll try to make my move. If there's a ditch, or if I can cut in on the edge and try to skirt down around them. And
that's it. I'll do things similar. Like I went this morning to observe with the thought. I was like,
If it's on, it's on.
If he
Yeah.
goes to the right place,
Yeah.
and he kind of was near
I observe
there.
with my bow.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause when you hunt the bottoms, you got lots of levees and ditches, and they're
You
on
can
one
use
side
them.
of a levee.
Hmm.
You can jump on the other side
double time.
hot foot it,
Yep.
and then play your cards right.
That's some of the best. Lathan, that
we've
is.
killed a few deer that way. I've killed some deer that way.
I've had some experiences, not even killed deer like that. Just had been like, oh, that was the most amazing hunt ever. Got within 80 yards of him, or I got him within 40 yards, and your heart's pounding, and you're peeping over the top, you're looking through grass, and you're like, there he is, and you try to cut him off. I mean, that is exhilarating.
I think that, the other evening in the snow, I think when I text you guys and I had that close encounter with a really nice buck, I think that was my best. I've seen bigger deer this year. I even had some cool hunts. I've crawled up on some big ones in cornfields and stuff like that. But that one had
your heart pounded, didn't it?
Had me juiced up. Did I call you?
Yeah,
you
were like,
oh,
you're.
Yeah, I was still crackly.
I could hear you breathing. You were,
and I think I was calling you to tell you keep your head up
because they're
because he is going south, and if he veered your direction, because you were sitting in a stand, I was like, and I don't even know if I ever said that to you. I think I told you where he was going.
You did say he's going south.
But man, I was still hunting with some snow camo on in the snow. And I walked right up on a dandy buck. He didn't know I was there. I looked up and there he was.
That was a unique hunt.
And I had just stopped walking. Some people don't even know what I say. They don't know what still hunting is. I still hunt with this fashion. I move 8 to 10 yards and I stand for 3 to 4 minutes. 2 to 3. I don't put a stopwatch on myself, but
you stop for a little bit and watch everything.
Look it over. Hold still and look it over. And I pick my next place to walk to. And when I walk, I don't just take off. I just move like a cat.
Pick a point.
Yeah, move like a cat. And I was doing that, and I had just stopped. I mean, hadn't stood there 5 seconds. And I was like, that looks like a deer ahead of me. And it picked up its head. I was like, that is a deer ahead of me. And it's a nice buck. And he was making a scrape way back in the brush.
It was only a week ago.
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah.
And he licked on the limb, worked that licking limb, squatted and peed down his back legs, and that rascal took his first step, come right to me. I had him like 10 to 12 yards and had never seen me. And for whatever reason, when I went to draw, he wasn't looking at me. And I thought I had let him pass me for enough
to get out of his peripheral,
that I was in his peripheral. And but when I started draw, I was like a quarter, not even halfway into my draw, and he bunched up like an accordion.
Well, and like you said, it was
so calm. I don't know if he heard my clothes. I don't know if he could hear the bow.
You said you could literally hear the snow.
Yeah, when I would hold still in there in that brush, I could hear the snow hitting.
Yeah,
the flakes like
it
this
was
constant,
still.
Almost sound like white noise.
Yeah, it did.
But anyhow, that was off the hook. One of the best encounters with a deer I've had in a couple of years, because it was like, oh my lands, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him.
Way more still hunting late season, because you just, it's not like we don't have a stand in every fence row. And well, with these setups we have now, with these mobile setups we have now, it gives you the ability to do it, to move around. But I still myself almost would rather just work down fence rows. And
fence rows are tough for me. I don't like to still hunt fence rows. If I'm working,
I'll use them to.
Yeah. If I'm doing a fence row or a ditch or a levee, I know where the deer's at.
Yeah, I'll use them to, say I need to make some time. It's a funnel, or I'll use
spot and stop type situation.
I'll use it as a screen to cover, to cut some ground. Something I like to do is like to scout a little bit. I am one who is not afraid to get down and move around a little bit,
right,
in between hunts, just to gather intel. Like right now, something a guy can do is, if you know where a good ditch or big creek is at or something like that, go walk up that thing and see where they're crossing that at.
Where the latest,
where they've really, because everything's soft right now, so they'll really cut a rut, and you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where they're crossing this. And you'll see late season, they tend to start to favor those runs, and they will start to, they may not hit the same run every night, but they will frequent one. If they like one and they feel safe and it's dumping them right out in the sweet spot of the field, they'll run that, man, over and over. And I like, that's what I like to do. That's some of the, honestly, gathering information and moving around and just seeing where it's changing. That's something I really have always done and enjoyed doing. You know,
I think that kind of goes with what I said earlier, like driving around. That's
Mhm.
probably my number one piece of late season. What do I do now?
tactics,
Tactic.
to adapt to what's going on.
I have to quit thinking about, well, I'm probably not going to rattle him in or maybe grunt him in. Not that couldn't happen. Those things can
you
happen.
can still give him a good old burp, and
but
he'll come
they're
to
not
you.
on the forefront anymore. Food is king,
Mhm.
especially in another week and a half or two. Food will be king.
Yearling does too.
Your evenings will get better than your mornings from everything I've seen in most places. I'm sure there's always exceptions to the rule, but your evenings are going to be a little more prominent as far as being able to hone in on a good deer anyway.
In the daylight, yeah.
And then number one is just reprogram your mind and your brain to gather some intel. You know, people have got those cameras. If you're thinking about camera got people that's running cell cams and all that stuff, they've probably got some of them in places that they may think, man, the deer ain't hardly moving.
You need to shift your cameras.
But their camera may need moved.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's what I like when I said I like to get out and walk around a little bit. That's one of the things I like to do.
You find a hot run, it's like, oh, I need to move
Yeah.
that camera from that place that
You
I've
may
been.
only need to move it 20 yards.
Yeah. It gives you some new insight on that
Or
area.
flip it around.
Yeah.
You know,
So I'm not a camera person, so I use the vehicle and I sit on the road and I scout from the road, and I've killed a few deer. I don't know. I know I've killed one based upon finding him, driving around,
Oh, yeah.
finding him in my spot. It's like, oh, he's coming out on this side now,
Yeah.
and then started hunting him and ended up killing him. Maybe more than one, but I can think of one fresh in my mind. So that's probably number one. What do I do now? That's what I do. I regroup. I take those mental notes of where I know there's food. Cornfields are just king. If you've got standing being still, bless your heart, I'll come and hunt with you if you want me to. Because standing beings can be phenomenal
in any
the
kind of,
end of December and January.
like I hunt a lot of, I tend to do a lot of late season hunting. And like I said, I am a morning hunter and I like to hunt some timber in the morning. If you can find any browse that's still out there, good walls of honeysuckle,
Yeah, they like honeysuckle.
they will hit it, man. They will hit it. And if you can find a good edge, it's still all, and you'll see, you can walk down through there and you will see, man, they will literally pick that stuff as high as they can get it. They will pick
They'll
it clean.
clean it up. Yeah.
Another food source, a good one, is them old locust pods.
Yeah.
Them things will lay there all fall. And they
what are
won't
those
even
black locust, black honey locust pods. They'll eat them.
And they'll
I've seen them walking through with them hanging out of their mouth.
Well, and it's
working
crazy
them down
because like
a sketty
they've been
noodle.
laying out there for a while,
Yeah.
and they walk over them, and then all of a sudden it's like it's the last thing left out there free,
They'll eat them, yeah.
and then they start. It's either they get a hankering for them, or it's like, well, that's all I got.
That's
so
what's left. Yeah.
and so they'll start like last year. I heard, I was hunting this big ditch edge, and all of a sudden, I mean, I could hear these pods, they were all over the place. There were still a few hanging, and they were falling in the river. And I was like, what's going on? And all of a sudden I heard boosh. I was like, wow, is that a beaver? What is it? They were jumping in the river and getting them.
No kidding.
They were jumping in the river and getting them and fishing them out of there, man. It was like I'd seen them. They'd been coming down and they'd been cleaning everything up on the bank for a couple days. And the last few, they obviously didn't come there to jump in the river to get them. What it was is they were probably, there it was right in front of them.
The best morning hunts in January I've ever had. Here's a little tidbit, and I haven't really you got this goes with what you're saying. You got to get out and find this.
Mm,
I haven't done this for several years. I mistakenly one time found a place. I think the snow was on, and I was like, "What has been going on here?" And what it was, of course, they're digging and pulling
Yeah.
the snow back. What it was some oak trees that had hung on to their acorns
late drop.
crazy late.
Hmm.
And I
I'll
guess
bet that was a good
when it
spot.
snowed and it was in between two real thick areas, I would sit there in the morning and the deer would just pour down through there digging, especially when the snow was on. We had that year, there was a good snow on for a week or two, and they
Oh,
were
that's
in
good.
there every day. You could sit there in the middle of the day.
Yeah, and they'd be in there
And
working,
they'd be
wouldn't
in
they?
there, they'd get hungry and get them in there, and they'd come in there and scratching around looking for those acorns. And it was obvious it was the acorns because they would have almost all the snow shoveled away underneath each big
Yeah,
oak tree.
yeah,
So, I mean, you'd go over here where there wasn't an oak tree. I mean, there's tracks, but it's
sure.
not dug
It
in.
wasn't peeled back.
As soon as you get under the canopy of that big oak tree, all the snow was pulled back. So I can't hunt there anymore. But if I could hunt there, because they're
Probably a good
coming to
spot.
those acorns even when it's not snowing, obviously. They knew they were there
They know.
before the snow fell, and they were just really digging through that snow looking
Wonder
for
what
those
kind of
acorns.
trees do you know? Can you think were they
I
red
think-
oak, so
I
bur
think
oak?
they were
white.
They were either a bur oak or a red oak, and
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say a big old pin oak, bur oak type,
yeah. Were they little? Were they the little ones or the?
just the medium
Yeah,
size. The pin oaks have little bitty
the
ones,
little
right?
tiny ones. Don't
These were decent
Decent sized ones.
Is that red oak?
they? Red oaks and white oaks are deep. Then the bur oaks are the great
Big
big ones.
rascals, yeah.
And they say-
they weren't the great big ones. They were either white oaks. And I'm almost sure they weren't white oaks because I recognize a white oak. It's pretty
Yeah.
distinctive on its bark. But
Yeah,
a red
a
oak,
black oak and red oak are pretty similar. You
yeah,
will.
a red oak carries a little more of like a pin oak type bark,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I bet they were red oaks.
Little
but
cleaner.
man, they were cleaner. They were hammering those, and of course I can't hunt there no more. But if I'd get out in some of my places,
Oh, oak patch. And that's a good idea. You
you
go. Like to
you
go.
get out and scout around and find some big oak trees down in the timber. These oak trees were in between just thickets.
Mhm.
It was in the timber, and it was thick on both sides, and just a draw down through there of big oaks with the thicket on both sides. And I mean, it was all woods, but part of the old woods was thick where it'd been cut over, and this area hadn't been. And then on the other side, it was cut over. So they piled in there. So a guy could get out and find those places because there is certain oak trees that will hang on to those
And you can
really late.
you can get on those and you can use these food sources until they dry up, and then you got to
Yeah.
move.
And I'd reiterate, if you have standing beings, soybeans, especially if we start getting snows,
Yeah,
because the beings stick up through the snow.
man, I wouldn't know anybody'd have any. I mean, a food plot might,
Yeah,
but they
food
were.
plot guys. My Uncle Keith probably has it still, but he had one years ago, and me and my other uncle Richard, he told us, yeah, go down there, and we went down there and hunted, and it was phenomenal. The
Yeah.
snow had been on, brutal cold late season. I'm not saying you don't have some warm ups in there, but I'm talking when you get one of those
Good cold
late
snap.
Decembers and January
Ground's
where it's just like
frozen.
week and a half or two of just highs in the 20s, lows down close
The
to
beans
zero.
this year were super potted up, and so even cut beans have low pods
Some down next
that
to
they
the
missed
ground.
and around edges and stuff where that draper head, or if that farmer wasn't running a draper head and he had the old school rigid head on there,
Yeah.
he
Missed
couldn't.
some.
Yeah, he couldn't get down real low.
We
You could walk down some hedges and draws and stuff and find some pockets. And
we seen like 80 some head, and we jumped deer
That'd be
trying to
awesome.
get to the stand. Had to run 'em
walking
out.
in the evening.
like in the early evening, they're already in the beans because the snow was on.
Yeah, so they
and,
were up
and
early.
we're climbing up the tree with deer coming back out. I think it was just crazy. They just came into those beans all evening, just like it was like,
Well, that's all they had. I mean, they were.
It was there's such deer go after low hanging fruit,
Yeah, it was easy to get.
and those bean stems and pods are stuck up through. We had 3 or 4 inches of snow on. They're stuck up a foot through the snow. I mean, they're just going down through there. Just this is easy eating, and it's protein and it's
high protein.
high protein. So it
Keeping them warm.
sticks to the ribs, so to speak. Sticks to the ribs. But
Speaking of stick to the ribs, these old does are starting to swell up a little bit.
yeah,
There'll
be some of them impregnated.
the old
but-
meaty. Yeah, this is the time of year for me personally. I would like to knock a few of them babies down.
Yeah, I'm still in a toss up if I'm going to shoot a doe this year. I
Well,
keep thinking I'm going to go by the processing place and find out how much it is to make one into totally like these barbecue patties I hear so much about.
I've been hearing about them too. So if anybody has any barbecue patties they want to get rid of,
Yeah, I hear. We'll plug Clark's in Wayne City. I hear their barbecue pre-made patties are delightful,
that's what I'm hearing.
and I'm thinking about just stop by there and be like, if I brought you a big sized doe, if I brought the meat to you,
Yeah.
and go ahead.
Would they
and-
do that, you think?
I think they do that.
If you went ahead and cleaned it up for them?
Anybody can comment in the comments and answer that. I think you can just bring them the meat, and I assume they would weigh it and tell
Sure.
them I want the whole thing and then barbecue patties. I haven't shot a doe, gosh, for at least 5 years, probably 4 or 5 years, maybe more.
I'd like to shoot about 5 does.
I'm not against it, I'm all for it. Somebody has to shoot them, but I don't know.
I'm
I
wanting to
sure
do.
love watching them just walk on.
They
by.
are very beautiful. They're graceful. They are beautiful.
And I'm not even coming at it from that angle. We don't eat them as much as we used to, for sure. And also I just so love hunting mature bucks.
Yeah. Lathan has the buck fever.
every hunt I go on, whether it's early season,
Yeah.
the heart of rut, or from here on out,
You're looking for a good one.
and it's like, man, if I shoot that doe, what if I mess up my evening or my morning?
But what
or
if you shoot that doe and it drops right in front of you and no biggin comes in?
that could happen too. I've heard the stories.
I'm wanting to.
And the other thing is, if I shoot that doe, I look at her and I'm like, I have to get her out of here.
Let me call my friend Josh. He works for
I'm pretty-
Backstraps.
I'm pretty notorious. The last doe that
Sling
I
that
can,
guy a backstrap. He'll pack that out for me.
the last doe that I remember, it may not be the last doe I shot, but the last one that I remember shooting, I strategically picked a place to where when she got on the other side of me, I'm really close to the truck, one of those spots.
Head her to the truck.
And I was like, I'm going to shoot her on this side, and she'll probably run that way, and she'll go down close to the truck. And I drug her about 50 yards.
yeah. Yeah, that's the
And
best
loaded
con.
her up, and I was like, that's the kind of doe I like to get.
Where I
right
was
there.
at tonight, I did.
I'll walk a mile and drag a big buck till I have to puke.
I walked a mile tonight. 1 mile in, 1 mile out.
Yeah.
And I was, because I've transitioned a little bit. I obviously would like to plug another buck here and like to get a good one. But am starting to switch to, man, I would just like to, because I like shooting them too. I'm pretty proficient at it, but I'm wanting to make some nice tomahawk chops, the old tomahawk steaks out of them. This is my next endeavor, and I need a good.
Can you get a tomahawk
Oh yeah.
chop out of a deer?
Oh, yeah.
Can you?
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
enough about. I mean, I've butchered hundreds, I think, but
Zipper down the back, cut the ribs.
I'm by no means a
Right
authority.
there. I mean, it's not going to be no big. I mean, but it'll be a nice little. Oh, I can, make a pretty good presentation with that. it'll be good. That's what I want to do. I'd like to get me a couple and have a nice big old steak cook, and
Miss Jessie would cook them.
we'll cook them babies on the old grill there.
Really?
Yeah, we'll go open flame with
Open.
those.
Well, back on topic. Is there anything else that falls under the what would Josh do now from here on out that we haven't already? We don't want to just reiterate
No,
things.
we got food sources.
Obviously,
we got
everybody knows
scouting.
that. Go to the food.
You know, I mean, and like you said, you've hammered. A guy has to get out of his head. Not that you can't go set in a rut funnel and catch a big one coming through, because you can.
Sure.
And we all have. You know, but it's real easy to be like, oh, this is my spot. This is my spot. I did it tonight. You know, I did it tonight. I went back there tonight, and had I just did what I knew I should, it's like I knew what I should have done,
Right.
and you know, I would have more than likely. I know for sure had they not caught my wind or I bumped them getting in there, I would have seen them because I
Yeah.
knew they were there. I got some intel on that.
They were
They were in there.
They
They'd been
were
in there
there.
for 2 days. There'd been
Yeah.
a bunch of small ones. There was 2 small ones in there, 2-year-olds, and that big wide 3, or that big wide one you passed that's been
Right.
moving around. Oh, they were running up and down they've been out all night long. So
Well, I passed. He wasn't a giant though.
No,
But
no.
I'm tickled.
You
I don't want people to think I'm just letting giants go by
No.
because I'm some elite guy.
no. Lathan passed. He had some nice.
It was a nice buck.
It was a nice buck, and he let it walk. And you know, it would probably be hard for me to let that walk right now. And he and honestly, by the end of the season, he may go, man, I wish I'd shot that. And you may not.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good 3-year-old, but man, next year it would be an absolute.
He's a nice buck.
He has some good structure.
I had
on
to
him.
have an internal discussion with myself.
You told me that he come
Yeah.
by you twice.
yeah,
didn't
he
you?
came by.
So he
and
tested
didn't-
the waters.
Yeah, he came by and didn't give a great shot the first time. He went east. And I was like, oh, well, there he went, and he gave me like a 40. I was like, well, it's easier to pass a 40.
Oh, sure. You're like, nah, that's not the best.
I guess
shot.
that rascal went down there and circled and come right back. And
He's
pops
been
out
hanging
on-
around.
He
He's-
popped out on the other side of me like at 20, 25. And I was like, ooh.
Now that's a
Now I-
that's a hard one
and
to
he,
pass.
He kept looking better and better and better and better and better.
And
but
he's a good buck. He's
yeah,
wide.
He's nice. Yeah, he's pushing 20 inches wide.
Yeah, he's a good wide.
Yeah, he's a nice buck.
Good.
Anyhow, I don't know how we got off on that, but
I don't know. We did.
the last leg, I'd say my biggest thing to what I would do now, and I've already said it, but would be I got to get my head back in the game to endure some cold weather and get out there. And
Right.
I never have a problem.
I can do the cold.
I never have the cold don't bother me. I mean, I get cold.
Well, it does some guys. Some
But,
guys are like, I can't do it. It's too.
Yeah, I love hunting in the cold, but I never struggle to get out there of an evening.
No, it's way easier than
it's
in the morning.
simple. But late season, if I had a glitch, I can talk myself out of some morning hunts.
Oh,
But after seeing what I saw this morning, there's a real good chance Lathan G. Musgrave will be up in the morning, setting in about a 13-acre patch of woods that's surrounded.
we got a
the-
guest star.
that is surrounded by some corn. You
gonna
just
get-
showed up
are
in
you
time
are
because
you
I was getting
getting
ready
in?
to. We was getting ready to wrap it up. Let's get your what would Wes do from here on out if Wes still had a buck tag?
We got a behind the scenes. Wes is behind the scenes here, literally.
Yeah, that's basically what we've talked about the whole time.
Wes says, "Get on the corn."
Yeah, we got to get on the food, but
Spend some time driving. Find
Yeah.
out where the deer.
Yeah,
yeah, you can tell we've hunted together because that's
it's like verbatim.
yeah. That's my main two things. I was like, I'm going to make a mental note of where the best food is. And I'm going to probably drive around like I did this morning. I'm going to drive around and take some long distance surveillance and pick some places where I know bucks are frequenting. And then I'm going to set up and get everything right and go after them.
They're going to bed close to food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The circle becomes very small.
Yeah.
It
there you
does,
go.
don't it?
There you go. He wrapped the whole thing.
He
up.
did right there.
I'm sure they heard anything.
Yeah. Well, he said that the circles get smaller, they bed closer to good food, and
Get you some intel.
yeah, and set off at a distance. Whether some places we didn't necessarily always drive around. We just
Burn some gas. You could tell. You guys have done this a bunch. You'll hit a spot. You'll idle. Like if you're sitting out there, you can hear guys doing this. You'll hear the old rocks popping real slow, and then it's hyperdrive, man.
to the next
To the
spot.
next spot.
Yeah,
Rocks pinging all the way
Yeah.
there.
But there's even places like this morning I parked and walked. I think
Yeah.
as I told you, I walked like 100, 120 yards to look over the levee. because I want to see what's in that
Sure.
hidden field. So there's that too. And then there's just hunts where you're like, well, I'm going to go set, and I know I'm going to be out of the game, but I'm going to set in a place where I can see
Where I can just see.
like two edges of the woods or something and know which field they're hitting the most.
Yeah.
And then you move in on them from there. So that being said, I don't have much more. I would be
I think
more
we
than,
covered all the bases.
and we can just keep talking about corn and bedding and driving around, but we don't want to bore the people. So I'm ready to wrap it up. If Josh is.
I'm good to go.
Any comments that needed?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of, Cody Bodine says, when you second guess yourself, you know you're right. Say
Yeah.
you're right, Cody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul
Oh.
says hey. Jay says hey.
Well, we appreciate everybody that's
Bravo.
watched. Make sure you give it a thumbs up. Make sure you follow Up for Discussion on YouTube. And you don't follow it on YouTube, do you? You subscribe to it. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook.
Ring the bell.
Message us. Come into Ultra Products and check out everything that's hot for Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas is coming up.
We got, what do we got? We got coffee tumblers and drink water canisters.
Got
and
all the new bows
coolers
are in
and
now. All the new releases
and
are in.
Not, well, I'm just thinking like those wonderful Christmas gifts.
Oh, stocking stuffers.
Yeah, like pocket knives.
Gift certificates.
Yeah, gift certificates. Come in, see us at Ultra Products. Hey, there's still deer season left. I always tell people, check your bow, shoot it, make sure it's still shooting
Yeah,
right.
for
'cause
sure.
You don't want to miss Mr. Big right here at the end. We're going to check out if you know how to shut that thing
Yeah.
off. We love you so much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.